The chamber stretched out like a vast cathedral made of crystal and light. Diplomat Subin stood at the center of it, feeling very small. Around her, in seats that rose up in circular tiers, sat the representatives of 300 alien species. Some had scales. Some had fur. Some looked like they were made of water or stone or pure energy. All of them were staring at her. Subin wore a simple black suit. Her hair was pulled back tight. She kept her face calm even though her heart was racing. This was the Galactic Concord, the place where the rulers of the galaxy made their decisions. Earth had been invited here once before, 50 years ago. That meeting had not gone well. Now she was back, trying again. The Luxon ambassador rose from his seat. His name was Vor Cathal, and he looked like a giant praying mantis covered in golden armor. His multiple eyes glittered as he spoke. The translator device in Subin's ear turned his clicks and hisses into words. Humanity comes before us again. You ask for sovereignty, for the right to govern yourselves. The Concord has considered your request. Our answer is no. Subin had expected this. Still, hearing it said out loud made her stomach tighten. She took a breath and spoke carefully. May I ask why? Vor Cathal made a sound that might have been laughter. Because you are children. You use primitive weapons. You fight with metal slugs and explosives like barbarians. The civilized galaxy moved past such things 10,000 years ago. You will join the Luxon sovereignty as a tributary species. You will pay taxes. You will follow our laws. In time, perhaps, you will learn civilization. Around the chamber, other aliens made sounds of agreement. Some were laughing. Subin felt heat rise in her face, but she kept her voice steady. Earth respectfully declines. The laughter stopped. Vor Cathal leaned forward. His mandibles clicked together sharply. That is not an option. Subin met his eyes, all 6 of them. We are a free people. We will remain free. Then you will be isolated. Vor Cathal stood to his full height, nearly 3 meters tall. No trade, no travel, no contact with the civilized galaxy. We will blockade your space. Within 10 years, you will beg to join us. Subin wanted to argue. She wanted to shout. Instead, she bowed slightly and said, We shall see. Then she turned and walked out of the chamber. Behind her, the aliens were laughing again. 3 months later, Admiral Hyun-woo stood in a bunker buried 2 kilometers beneath the Pacific Ocean. The walls were thick concrete. The air was recycled and tasted stale. Banks of computers lined the room, their screens showing star maps and fleet positions. None of it looked good. The Luxans had been efficient. They placed their warships at every major jump point leading to human space. Any ship trying to leave got turned back or destroyed. Trade had stopped. Food shipments from the colony worlds were cut off. Earth's orbital stations were running on emergency power. Hyun-woo was 50 years old with gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent 30 years in the Earth Defense Fleet, working his way up from a fighter pilot to commander of all human military forces. He had fought pirates and smugglers. He had never fought a real war. No human had, not in 300 years. Dr. Ji-won entered the room. She was younger than him, maybe 35, with short black hair and oil stains on her lab coat. She carried a datapad and looked excited, which was unusual. Ji-won rarely looked excited about anything. Show me, Hyun-woo said. Ji-won set the datapad on the table and pulled up a video. It showed a long metal rail, maybe 50 meters long, mounted in a test facility. At one end was a power generator. At the other end, a tungsten rod about the size of a telephone pole. A railgun, Hyun-woo said. We have railguns, not like this. Ji-won tapped the screen. The video played. The generator whined. Magnetic coils along the rail lit up in sequence. The tungsten rod shot forward so fast it was just a blur. The camera shook from the recoil. 30,000 kilometers per second, Ji-won said. 10% the speed of light. The rod has a mass of 5 tons. Do the math. Hyun-woo did the math in his head. His eyes widened. That is a lot of kinetic energy. More than a nuclear bomb, Ji-won said. And it does not care about energy shields. Hyun-woo looked at her. Explain. Galactic shields are designed to absorb energy. Lasers, plasma particle beams. They dissipate heat and radiation. But kinetic weapons transfer momentum, not energy. A shield can't stop momentum. Physics does not work that way. So this rod would go right through their shields. Like they are not even there. Hyun-woo stared at the frozen video. Can we build one big enough to mount on a warship? Already working on it. 6 months, maybe less, do it. Captain Taman hated retreating. He especially hated retreating when his ships were outmatched and outgunned and had no chance of winning. But orders were orders, and staying alive was better than dying for no reason. His patrol fleet consisted of 6 frigates, small and fast but lightly armed. They had been scouting the edge of human space when the Luxon dreadnought appeared. It was called the Eternal Dominion, a name that made Timon want to punch something. The dreadnought was 3 kilometers long, bristling with plasma cannons and particle beam arrays. It had 4 escort cruisers, each one bigger than Tamon's entire fleet. The Luxons opened fire first. Bright blue plasma bolts crossed the distance in seconds. Tamon's shields flared and held barely. One of his frigates was not so lucky. The plasma tore through its shield like paper and vaporized the ship in a flash of white light. 20 crew members gone in an instant. All ships scatter pattern Delta. Get to the jump point. The frigates broke formation and accelerated in different directions. The Luxons targeted another one. More plasma fire. Another explosion. Tamon watched on his screen and clenched his jaw so hard his teeth hurt. His ship, the Defiant, made it to the jump point first. The other 3 surviving frigates followed seconds later. They jumped, leaving the Luxon fleet behind. In the silence that followed, Tamon sat in his command chair and stared at nothing. His first officer, Lieutenant Minho, approached carefully. "Sir, we did what we could. We ran," Tamon said flatly. "We lost 2 ships and 40 crew members, and we ran. We survived. That is not enough." Tamon stood up. His hands were shaking with anger. "Send a message to High Command. Tell them the Eternal Dominion is patrolling the edge of our space. Tell them if we do not do something soon, the Luxons will just pick us off 1 ship at a time." Minho nodded and left to send the message. Tamon looked out at the stars through the viewport. Somewhere out there, the Luxons were celebrating. They thought they had won. They thought humanity would give up. They were wrong. 6 months had passed since Captain Tamon lost 2 ships to the Eternal Dominion. 6 months of running, hiding, and watching the Luxan blockade grow tighter. But today was different. Today, Tamon stood on the bridge of a new ship. The EDS Indomitable was not the biggest warship in the human fleet, but it was the most important. From the outside, it looked like any other Earth destroyer with gray armor and standard weapons arrays. But running down the center of the ship from bow to stern was something new. Something the galaxy had never seen before. The Railcannon Tamon walked down the corridor toward the weapons bay. The walls vibrated slightly from the reactor banks that powered the cannon. Red warning lights flashed at every intersection. The weapon drew so much power that they had to divert energy from the shields just to charge it. Master Gunner Heijin was already there, running final diagnostics. She was a small woman with short hair and steady hands. Before the war, she had operated mining equipment on the asteroid colonies. Now she was responsible for the most powerful weapon humanity had ever built. "Status?" Tamon asked. "All systems green. Magnetic coils are aligned. Power flow is stable." She looked up from her console. "We are ready. Are you nervous?" Heijin shrugged. Being nervous would not help. The math either works or it does not. Tamon smiled despite himself. "That is a very practical way to look at it. I am a practical person, Captain." "Good. We are going to need that today." The alarm sounded throughout the ship. "All hands to battle stations. This is not a drill." Tamon ran back to the bridge. His crew was already in position, strapped into their seats and checking their instruments. The main screen showed a star system 12 light-years from Earth. Kepler Station hung in orbit around the 3rd planet. A small civilian outpost that served as a waypoint for refugee ships. 5 refugee vessels were docked there right now, filled with families fleeing the war zones. And closing in on them was the Eternal Dominion, along with 4 battle cruisers. Admiral Hyunwoo's voice came through the comm channel. "Captain Tamon, you are authorized to engage. Protect those refugees, and test our new toy." "Understood, Admiral." Tamon looked at his navigator. "Take us in. Full burn." The Indomitable dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Immediately, every Luxan ship detected them. Tamon could see their formation shift on the tactical display. The battle cruisers moved to intercept. On the Eternal Dominion, Ambassador Vorkathel watched the human ship approach. His mandibles clicked with amusement. A single human warship had come to challenge him. Either they were incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. "Probably both. Hold position," he ordered. "Let them come closer. I want the humans to see what happens when they defy us." The Luxan ships opened fire. Blue plasma bolts streaked across space, each one bright enough to hurt the eyes. The Indomitable's shields flared as the first impacts hit. Warning lights lit up across the bridge. Shield strength at 60%, the defensive officer reported. "Keep going," Taman said. "Get us into firing range." More plasma fire hammered the shields. 50%, 40%. The ship shook with each impact. Taman gripped the armrests of his chair. The distance closed. 10,000 kilometers. 5,000. 3,000 weapons range, the tactical officer announced. He-Jin, lock onto the Eternal Dominion. In the weapons bay, He-Jin's hands moved across her console. The targeting computer hummed. Numbers scrolled across her screen as it calculated trajectory, velocity, and impact point. The Railcannon swiveled slightly, aligning with the target. "Target locked," she said calmly. On the bridge, Taman took a breath. This was it. 6 months of work, 6 months of hope. Everything depended on the next 10 seconds. Fire. The Railcannon fired. There was no flash of light. No explosion. Just a deep, bone-shaking hum that resonated through the entire ship. The magnetic coils activated in sequence, creating a field that accelerated the tungsten rod faster and faster. In less than a second, it reached 30,000 kilometers per second. The recoil hit like a hammer. Everyone on the bridge was thrown forward against their restraints. Warning alarms blared, but no one was paying attention to that. Everyone was staring at the main screen. The tungsten rod crossed the distance to the Eternal Dominion in 3 seconds. The Dreadnought's shields activated automatically, designed to absorb and disperse energy attacks. But this was not an energy attack. The rod punched through the shield like it was not even there. It hit the Dreadnought's armor plating and kept going. Through 3 decks. Through crew quarters and weapon storage and command centers. Out the other side. The kinetic energy transfer was catastrophic. For a moment, the Eternal Dominion just hung there in space, seemingly undamaged. Then the reactor containment failed. The explosion was bright enough to light up half the system. The 3-kilometer Dreadnought came apart in a ball of white fire. Debris scattered in all directions. The 4 battlecruisers closest to it were hit by the shockwave and sent spinning. On the bridge of the Indomitable, no one spoke. They all stared at the screen where the Eternal Dominion had been, where there was now only an expanding cloud of gas and wreckage. Taman found his voice first. Did that really? He-Jin's voice came through the comm. "Target destroyed, Captain." The math worked. The bridge erupted in cheers. People were hugging each other, shouting, crying. Taman let them celebrate for a few seconds. Then he raised his hand for quiet. "We are not done yet. Open a channel to the Luxon fleet." All frequencies. The comm officer worked quickly. "Channel open, sir." Taman stood up and spoke clearly. "This is Captain Taman of the Earth Defense Ship Indomitable. Your blockade is over. Withdraw from this system immediately or the next shot is yours." For a long moment, nothing happened. The Luxon battlecruisers held position. Taman wondered if they would call his bluff. The Railcannon needed 10 minutes to recharge. He could not fire again even if he wanted to. Then one by one, the Luxan ships began to retreat. They activated their FTL drives and jumped away, leaving the system empty except for the wreckage of their flagship. The refugee ships at Kepler Station began broadcasting messages of thanks. Taman acknowledged them briefly, then turned to his crew. "Get me Admiral Hyunwoo, and someone tell Dr. Ji-won that her weapon works." When the channel opened to Earth, Hyunwoo was already smiling. He had been watching the whole battle. "I saw it, Captain. I saw everything." "Good work, thank you, sir. What are our orders?" "Return to Earth. We need to debrief, analyze the data, and start building more rail cannons." "A lot more." Hyunwoo paused. "The galaxy is going to react to this, Taemin. We just broke their rules. Things are about to get very interesting." Taemin looked at the wreckage on his screen. He thought about the look of shock that must have been on Vorkathel's face in those final seconds. "Good," he said quietly. "Let them be afraid for a change." The news spread across the galaxy in hours. The Eternal Dominion, pride of the Luxon fleet, had been destroyed. Not in a lengthy battle. Not after days of bombardment. One shot, one weapon, 3 seconds. Diplomat Su Bin watched the reactions pour in from her office in Geneva. Every major news network in the galaxy was running the story. Some showed the battle footage that had leaked from the Luxan battlecruisers. Others showed computer simulations of what had happened. All of them were asking the same question: how? Subin's assistant, a young man named Jae Sung, brought her a fresh cup of coffee. You should see the Concord message boards. They are losing their minds, let me guess. They think we cheated somehow. Half of them think we have some secret alien technology. The other half think the footage is fake. Jae Sung sat down. Nobody wants to believe that simple kinetic weapons could do this. Subin sipped her coffee. Good. Let them keep thinking that. The longer they underestimate us, the better. Her communicator beeped. It was a priority message from the Galactic Concord. She was being summoned to an emergency session. Subin smiled. She had been expecting this. Time to go face the music, she said. The Concord chamber was packed. Every seat was filled. Subin walked to the center of the floor and stood calmly while 300 species stared at her. This time, nobody was laughing. A new Luxan representative stood where Vor Cathal used to stand. This one was smaller, with darker armor. Her voice shook with rage. You murdered Ambassador Vor Cathal. You destroyed the Eternal Dominion without warning. You have violated every law of civilized warfare. Subin let the words hang in the air for a moment. Then she spoke, her voice calm and clear. Your ambassador declared us uncivilized. Your fleet blockaded our space. Your ships fired on our refugees. We defended ourselves using the weapons we have. If those weapons are too primitive for your civilized galaxy, perhaps you should not have attacked us. The Luxan representative's mandibles clicked furiously. You used weapons specifically designed to bypass our defenses. That is a war crime, Subin raised an eyebrow. Show me the law that says so. Show me where in the Concord Charter it says certain types of weapons are illegal. The Luxan opened her mouth, then closed it. There was no such law. For 10,000 years, everyone had used energy weapons because they were effective. Nobody had thought to ban kinetic weapons because nobody used them anymore. Subin continued. Earth is willing to negotiate. Lift the blockade. Recognize our sovereignty. Allow free trade and travel. In return, we will agree to a ceasefire, and if we refuse? The Luxan asked. Subin's smile was cold. Then we will build more railcannons, many more, and the next time your ships enter our space, we will not stop at one. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Some species demanded that humanity be sanctioned. Others argued for immediate military action. A few, Subin noticed, remained silent. They were thinking, calculating, wondering if they could get their hands on this new technology. The session ended with no decisions made. Subin left the chamber and returned to her ship. As she boarded, her communicator chimed again. 2 messages this time. One from the Vreth Collective. One from the Kelthane Ascendancy. Both wanted private meetings, she smiled. The galaxy's 3 great powers were starting to fracture. Perfect. Dr. Jiwan had not slept in 3 days. She stood in the center of Earth's largest shipyard, watching construction crews swarm over 50 half-built warships. Each one would carry a rail cannon. Each one would be ready in 6 months. Admiral Hyunwoo walked up beside her. You should rest. I will rest when this is over. It might never be over. Hyunwoo looked out at the ships. We have started something we cannot stop. Jiwan was quiet for a moment. Do you think I made a mistake? Building the rail cannon? No, you gave us a chance to survive. Without it, the Luxans would have starved us into submission. But now we are a threat. The whole galaxy will see us as dangerous. Good. Dangerous is better than extinct. Hyunwoo put a hand on her shoulder. You did the right thing, Jiwan. Now we just have to make sure we use this power wisely. Before Jiwan could respond, an alarm sounded. Both of them ran to the command center. The duty officer looked up, his face pale. Incoming Luxan fleet. 30 ships. They are heading for the Tau Ceti colony, Hyunwoo cursed. We do not have any rail cannon ships ready yet. The Indomitable is still in repair. Then we use what we have, Jiwan said. She pulled up a star map. The smaller railguns, the ones mounted on frigates and destroyers, they are not as powerful, but they will work. Hyunwoo looked at the map. What are you thinking? We think like humans. We do not fight fair. We hit them where they are weakest. Commander Bora loved her job. She commanded a squadron of 12 light destroyers, fast ships with minimal armor but excellent sensors. Her specialty was guerrilla tactics. Hit and run, strike from the shadows, make the enemy afraid of empty space. Today she got to put those tactics to the test against a real enemy fleet. The Luxan fleet arrived at Tau Ceti expecting to find the colony defenseless. Instead, they found nothing. The colony had been evacuated hours earlier. The Luxan commander was cautious. He kept his ships in tight formation and advanced slowly. That was his first mistake. Bora's ships were hiding in the asteroid belt, their reactors shut down to avoid detection. They waited until the Luxon fleet was past them. Then they powered up and attacked from behind. The compact railguns mounted on her destroyers were much smaller than the one on the Indomitable. They could not destroy a dreadnought, but they did not need to. Bora had her ships target engines and reactors, the vulnerable parts of enemy warships. 3 Luxan ships lost their engines in the first volley. They drifted helplessly while their crews scrambled to make repairs. The Luxan commander tried to regroup, but Bora's ships were already gone, jumping to a different position. They attacked again from a new angle. 2 more Luxan ships disabled. Then Bora jumped again, and again. Each time the Luxans tried to respond, but they were too slow. They were used to long-range battles where both sides could see each other. This was different. This was chaos. After 2 hours, the Luxan fleet retreated. They had lost 8 ships and had 11 more damaged. Bora's squadron had lost 1 destroyer and had 3 ships with minor damage. Back on Earth, Admiral Hyunwoo watched the battle data with satisfaction. We can do this. We can win. Ji-won was less certain. We won 1 battle. The Luxans will adapt. They will change their tactics, then we will adapt too. That is what humans do best. 2 weeks later, Subin sat in a private conference room with representatives from the Vreth Collective. They were aquatic beings, their bodies encased in water-filled environmental suits. Their spokesman, a creature named Velth, spoke in bubbling tones that the translator rendered as smooth, calculating language. The Vreth Collective is interested in a partnership. Your Railcannon technology is impressive. We would like to purchase the designs, not for sale, Subin said flatly. Name your price. Technology? Resources? Territory? Subin leaned forward. I do not want your money. I want your vote in the conquered. Support Earth's sovereignty. Oppose any sanctions or military actions against us. Do that, and we will consider selling you a limited number of railguns, not the designs. Finished weapons only. Belth was silent for a long moment. The Luxans will see this as betrayal. The Luxans just lost their most powerful warship. What they think does not matter anymore. Velth made a bubbling sound that might have been laughter. You are a cunning negotiator, Diplomat Subin. Very well. We accept your terms. The next day, Subin had a similar meeting with the Kelthane Ascendancy. They also wanted railguns. They also agreed to support Earth in the conquered. By the end of the week, Subin had secured agreements with 5 major powers. The galaxy was fracturing. The old alliances were breaking. And at the center of it all was humanity, the species everyone had dismissed as primitive barbarians. Subin allowed herself a small smile. The crowns were shaking. Soon they would fall. 1 year had passed since the Eternal Dominion fell. 1 year of chaos across the galaxy. The old order was crumbling, and everyone knew it. Minor species that had been under Luxan control for centuries were declaring independence. Trade routes were breaking down. Pirates and warlords filled the power vacuum. The Luxan sovereignty faced a choice: accept their reduced status or gamble everything on one final battle. They chose to gamble. In the command center beneath the Pacific, Admiral Hyunwoo stared at the tactical display. 300 Luxan warships had just entered human space. It was the largest fleet ever assembled. Every available ship the Luxans had, pulled from border patrols and garrison duty across their entire territory. They are coming for Earth, he said quietly. Dr. Ji-won stood beside him, her face pale. We have 80 Railcannon ships ready, plus 200 conventional warships. The math is not in our favor, then we do not fight on their terms. Hyunwoo pulled up a map of the Sol system. We know this system better than anyone. Every asteroid, every planet, every orbital path. We use that in ambush? The biggest ambush in history. Ji-won looked at the map and started to understand. Her eyes widened. That is insane. Yes, but it might work. Captain Taemin received his orders with a mix of excitement and terror. The Indomitable would lead the Central Strike Force. His job was simple in theory, impossible in practice. Fly straight into the heart of the enemy fleet and cause as much damage as possible before they could organize a response. It was a suicide mission. Everyone knew it. Nobody said it out loud. Master Gunner Hae-jin was already at her station when Taemin arrived in the weapons bay. She was running diagnostics on the Railcannon for the 100th time. "Ready?" he asked. "Always ready, Captain." She looked up at him. "Are you?" Taman smiled, though it did not reach his eyes. "Ask me after the battle." The human fleet scattered throughout the Sol system. 50 ships hid in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. 30 more positioned themselves near Saturn's rings. The rest spread out among the outer planets and moons. They shut down all unnecessary systems and drifted silently, waiting. The Luxan fleet entered the system near Neptune. They moved slowly, cautiously, scanning for ambushes. Their commander had learned from previous battles. He kept his ships in tight formation, with overlapping fields of fire. If the humans attacked, they would be met with overwhelming force. But the humans did not attack. The system appeared empty. The Luxan fleet advanced deeper, heading toward Earth. They passed Uranus, Neptune. Still no contact. The Luxan commander began to relax. Perhaps the humans had fled. Perhaps they knew they could not win. Then they reached Jupiter. The ambush began. 50 human ships erupted from the asteroid belt, railguns firing. Tungsten rods crossed the distance in seconds, punching through Luxan shields and armor. Ships exploded or went dark, their reactors failing. The Luxan fleet tried to turn and face this new threat. But their tight formation worked against them. Ships collided as they tried to maneuver. Then Commander Bora's squadron attacked from near Saturn. Her ships came in fast and low, targeting the Luxan command vessels. More railgun fire. More explosions. The Luxan fleet was being torn apart from multiple directions. In the chaos, Taman saw his opening. "All ships follow me." Full burn toward the flagship. The Indomitable led 20 other Railcannon ships straight through the center of the Luxan fleet. They were outnumbered 10-1, but they had surprise and speed. Plasma fire hammered their shields, but they kept going, firing as they moved. The Luxan flagship was called the Ascendant Glory. It was 4 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to level a planet. Taman aimed directly at it. "Heijin, lock on target. Already locked, Captain. Fire at will." The Railcannon fired. The tungsten rod hit the Ascendant Glory's bridge at 30,000 kilometers per second. The entire command section exploded. The flagship went dark, drifting without power or guidance. Around them, the other human ships were firing too. Luxan vessels were dying by the dozen, but the humans were taking losses as well. Taman watched 5 of his ships go down, vaporized by concentrated plasma fire. "Keep moving. Do not let them surround us." The battle raged for 6 hours. It spread across the entire inner solar system. Human ships struck and retreated, never staying in one place long enough to be destroyed. The Luxans tried to adapt, tried to coordinate, but their command structure was in chaos. Finally, as the sun rose over Earth, the Luxan fleet broke. What remained of it anyway? 200 ships destroyed, 50 more crippled and drifting. The survivors jumped away, fleeing the system. The human fleet regrouped near Mars. They had lost 38 warships, nearly 5,000 crew members, but they had won. Earth was safe. Taman sat in his command chair, exhausted. His ship was battered and scarred, but still functional. Heijin came to the bridge, her face streaked with sweat and oil. "We did it," she said simply. "Yes, we did." Taman looked out at the debris field that now surrounded Jupiter. So many dead. Theirs and ours. "That is the cost of freedom," Heijin said quietly. "Someone always pays." In the Galactic Concord, what remained of the Luxan delegation broadcast a message to all species. The voice was tired and defeated. It was the new Luxan leader, speaking from a refugee ship. "The Luxan sovereignty hereby announces the dissolution of all tributary agreements. All species under our control are granted immediate independence. We withdraw all military forces from occupied territories. We acknowledge defeat." The chamber was silent. 10,000 years. That was how long the Luxan sovereignty had ruled. 10,000 years of expansion and dominance, and it had ended in a single day. Within a week, the Vreth Collective made a similar announcement. They could not maintain their empire without the Luxan military backing them up. The Kelthane ascendancy followed soon after. The 3 great powers that had ruled the galaxy for millennia were stepping down. The crowns had fallen. Diplomat Subin stood in the Concord chamber and addressed the assembled species. Her voice was calm but carried authority. Earth did not seek this war. We did not want to destroy empires. We only wanted to be free. Now that freedom has been won, We must decide what comes next. A representative from one of the newly independent species stood up. What does Earth want from us? Nothing, Subin said. We do not want tribute or territory or vassals. We want trade. We want cooperation. We want a galaxy where species can govern themselves without fear of domination. Another voice called out. How can we trust you? You have the most powerful weapons in the galaxy. What stops you from becoming the new empire? Subin smiled. Nothing stops us, except our own values. We remember what it was like to be threatened with extinction. We will not do that to others. She paused and looked around the chamber. But if you do not trust words, trust this. We propose the formation of a new alliance, not an empire. A coalition of free species bound by mutual defense and open trade. No species above any other. Decisions made by consensus, not force. Who will join us? There was silence. Then one species stood and said they would join. Then another. And another. By the end of the session, 50 species had agreed to form what would be called the Free Alliance. Admiral Hyunwoo watched the broadcast from Earth. Dr. Jiwon stood beside him. Do you think it will work? She asked. Can we really build something better? I do not know. But we have to try. The alternative is just more empires, more wars, more death. Jiwon nodded slowly. Then she looked at him. What about us? What happens to Earth now? We rebuild. We mourn our dead. We try to be better than the empires we destroyed. Hyunwoo smiled tiredly. And we hope that the galaxy remembers why we fought. Not for conquest. For survival. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Tae-min looked out at space and thought about the future. They had won the war. Now came the harder part. Building peace. 5 years had passed since the Battle of Sol. 5 years of slow, painful rebuilding. The galaxy looked nothing like it had before. The old empires still existed, but they were shadows now, controlling only their home systems and a few loyal colonies. Hundreds of species governed themselves for the first time in millennia. It was messy. It was chaotic. It was democracy. Dr. Jiwon stood in front of a memorial wall in Geneva. The wall was made of black granite and stretched for 200 meters. On it were carved the names of every human who had died in the war. 50,000 names. 50,000 people who would never see the peace they had fought for. She found the section she was looking for. The crew of the EDS Indomitable. 23 names from the Battle of Sol. She traced her finger over them, reading each one silently. A voice spoke behind her. You remember them all? Jiwon turned. Master Gunner Heijin stood there wearing civilian clothes. She looked older now, with gray starting to show in her hair. She had retired from the military 2 years ago. I try to, Jiwon said. They died because of what I built. They died fighting for freedom. Heijin walked up beside her and looked at the names. That was their choice, just like it was yours to build the Railcannon. You gave us a weapon. We chose how to use it. But was it the right choice? Jiwon asked. We unleashed something terrible on the galaxy. Kinetic weapons. Now everyone has them. What if we just started a new arms race? Maybe we did. Heijin shrugged, but the alternative was extinction. You gave humanity a chance, that is all anyone can do. The rest is up to us. Jiwon was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. Thank you. I needed to hear that. They walked away from the memorial together. Two women who had changed the galaxy and were still trying to understand what that meant. The inaugural session of the Free Alliance took place in a newly built space station, orbiting a neutral planet. Representatives from 73 species gathered in a circular chamber designed so that no seat was higher or more important than any other. Diplomat Subin had been elected as the first coordinator, a position that rotated every 2 years. She stood at a podium in the center of the chamber and looked around at the faces, scales, tentacles, and other features of the assembled delegates. Welcome to the first session of the Free Alliance. Today we begin writing a new chapter in galactic history, not a chapter of conquest or domination, but of cooperation and mutual respect. A delegate from one of the former Luxon territories stood up. With respect, Coordinator, cooperation is easy to say. How do we enforce it? What stops stronger species from exploiting weaker ones? The Alliance has a military component, Subin replied. Any member species that faces aggression can call for help. All other members are bound to respond. But the military forces remain under the control of individual governments. No central authority commands them. Another delegate spoke up, this one from the Vreth Collective. And what about Earth? You have the most powerful weapons. Who watches you? Everyone. Subin met the delegate's eyes. Earth is bound by the same rules as everyone else. If we violate the Alliance Charter, we face the same consequences. Sanctions, expulsion, military action if necessary. Can you enforce that against Earth? Subin smiled. Honestly, probably not. But that is why trust is important. We have to trust each other to follow the rules, even when no one can force us to. That is what separates an alliance from an empire. The session lasted 6 hours. It was contentious, loud, and occasionally descended into shouting matches. But at the end they had agreed on a charter, a set of basic rules for trade, defense, and diplomacy. It was imperfect and incomplete, but it was a start. In the observation gallery above the chamber, Admiral Hyunwoo watched with satisfaction. He had retired from active duty, but still served as an advisor to the Earth government. Beside him, an old Luxan stood watching. This one had been a military officer once, before the sovereignty fell. Now he represented his species in the alliance. You destroyed my empire, the Luxan said. His voice held no anger, just statement of fact. Your empire would have destroyed us, Hyunwoo replied. We did what we had to do, I know. The Luxan clicked his mandibles in what might have been amusement, and perhaps it was for the best. We had become rigid, stagnant. We believed our power was eternal. You reminded us that nothing lasts forever. What will your people do now? Adapt, survive, maybe even thrive in time. The Luxan looked down at the chamber floor. This alliance of yours, it might actually work. I hope so, Hyunwoo said quietly. Captain Tae-min, now holding the rank of Commodore, stood on the bridge of a very different ship. The EDS Explorer was not a warship. It had minimal weapons and heavy sensor arrays. Its crew was mixed, with humans working alongside Vreth, Kelthane, and even 2 former Luxan officers. Their mission was simple. Chart the unexplored regions beyond the old Empire borders. Map new jump points. Search for habitable worlds. It was peaceful work, the kind Timon had never thought he would do. He found he liked it. The Vreth science officer, whose name Tae-min could barely pronounce, approached his station. We have found something interesting, Commodore. A solar system with 3 habitable planets. No signs of intelligent life. Tae-min looked at the data. 3 planets. Any one of them could support a colony. Room for growth. New possibilities. Mark it on the chart and transmit the data to the Alliance. Let them decide who gets to colonize it. The Vreth nodded and returned to his station. Tae-min looked out at the stars and thought about how far they had all come. 5 years ago he had been fighting for survival. Now he was exploring, discovering, building something new. His first officer, a human woman named Lieutenant Chae-rin, approached. Thinking about the war? Always. But also thinking about the future. We forced the galaxy to change. Now we have to prove that the change was worth it. Chae-rin smiled. We will. 1 star system at a time. On Earth, in a vault deep beneath the surface, the original Railcannon prototype sat in climate-controlled darkness. It had been decommissioned years ago, preserved as a historical artifact. Museums had requested it. Military academies wanted to study it. But Earth's government had decided it belonged here, hidden away, a reminder of what they had done and what it had cost. Dr. Ji-won stood in the vault looking at the weapon. She had not been here in 3 years, but today felt like the right time to visit. She walked up to the Railcannon and placed her hand on the cold metal. It looked almost peaceful here, stripped of its power supply and magnetic coils. Just a long rail and a mounting frame. But she remembered what it had been, what it had done. The eternal dominion burning in space. The Battle of Saul. The thousands who had died. Thank you, she whispered, for giving us a chance. Then she turned and walked away, leaving the past where it belonged. 10 years after the Battle of Sol, a young historian from a newly independent species published a book about the fall of the empires. The final chapter was titled, simply, The First Shot. It read, "For 10,000 years the galaxy was ruled by empires that believed their power was eternal. They built massive fleets. They conquered hundreds of worlds. They created a system where strength meant dominance and weakness meant submission. Then humanity arrived. They were weak by every measure that mattered. Small fleet, limited territory, primitive weapons. They should have been crushed easily. But humanity did not fight the way empires expected. They did not follow the rules. They asked a simple question that no one else had thought to ask. What if we do not play by your rules?" The first human Railcannon fired on a day that seemed like any other. One shot, 3 seconds. And when the Eternal Dominion exploded, the crowns of the galaxy's rulers began to shake. The empires fell not because humanity was stronger. They fell because humanity dared to imagine a different way. They fell because innovation beats tradition. They fell because power without adaptability is just a crown waiting to be knocked off. What came after was not perfect. The Free Alliance struggled with disputes and disagreements. Pirates and warlords filled some of the power vacuum. There were still wars, still injustices, still problems to solve. But there was also freedom. Species that had been slaves for centuries were now free to govern themselves. Trade flourished. Culture mixed and grew. The galaxy was messier than it had been under the empires, but it was also more alive. Humanity did not conquer the galaxy. They did not need to. They simply showed everyone else that conquest was not the only option. That strength could be used for something other than domination. That the future belonged not to the strongest, but to those willing to imagine it differently. The book ended with a quote from Admiral Hyunwoo, given in an interview shortly before his death. "We did not set out to change the galaxy. We just wanted to survive. But sometimes, fighting for your own survival means giving others the courage to fight for theirs." That is what the Railcannon really was. Not a weapon of conquest, but a weapon of liberation. One shot that told the galaxy's slaves they did not have to stay slaves forever, and so the crowns fell. Not to new kings, but to freedom itself. On the bridge of the EDS Explorer, Commodore Taman read the book and smiled. The historian had gotten most of it right. Not everything, but enough. He looked out at uncharted space and thought about the future. There were still unexplored star systems out there, still mysteries to uncover, still new worlds waiting to be found. The war was over, the